Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about G.G. Jackson making second team All-Rookie. I'm going to go over the latest Grizzlies coaching staff news. I'm going to look at some updated mock drafts, talk about a handful of trade ideas, and more. Before I do all that, just a reminder, if you want to join my listener Slack channel and get direct access to me and other Grizzlies fans, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. For $5 a month, you can join that listener Slack. You also get access to exclusive bonus episodes and content. So if you're a regular viewer or listener, consider supporting the show and getting those benefits at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. G.G. Jackson was named second team All-Rookie. It's a great honor for G.G., who ended the season on a tear. He averaged 17.6 points per game after the All-Star break. He became the fifth Grizzlies player in the last 6 years to make an All-Rookie team. His teammates, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant, and Brandon Clark, all made either first or second team All-Rookie in the past 6 seasons. G.G., of course, one of the bright spots of a lost Grizzlies season. And speaking of the season being lost, G.G. Jackson got this award specifically because the Grizzlies were tanking. I am happy for G.G. I don't want to take anything away from his award, but this was a direct result of the team tanking. G.G. played 31 minutes a game after the All-Star break. G.G. did not join the rotation on a regular basis until game 39. So I'm a little surprised G.G. Jackson got this honor. He was, as a positive, he was fourth among all rookies in scoring, or in points per game, a very important distinction. Fourth in points per game, but he was 17th among all rookies in minutes played. He was 27th among all rookies in games played. He only appeared in 14 victories. So, I mean, I think he's a worthy winner because he's a really good player. And he exploded onto the scene, and you could say he was more impactful than some other rookies. But, I do feel like maybe Scoot Henderson or Asar Thompson or Trace Jackson Davis for the Warriors maybe got snubbed a little bit because they played way more minutes and way more games. Like G.G., of course, he scored 44 points in the final game of the season. That's a Grizzlies rookie record. That's the second most points ever by a teenager in a game in NBA history. He scored 75 points total in his final 2 games of the year. Those 2 games raised his scoring average by a full point, went from 13.6 to 14.6 points per game. So, I don't know. I'm happy for G.G. I don't want to take anything away from his award. He's deserving. This podcaster feels a little bit surprised that he ended up making second team All-Rookie. I mean, the moral is points per game trumps all. You can look at that in other awards like Sixth Man of the Year usually, or any kind of All-NBA awards. Points per game is huge, and there were some gaudy numbers from G.G. Jackson. So in summary, congrats, G.G. I'm happy for you. I am happy as a Grizzlies fan. Also, future incredibly bright. If G.G. was in this upcoming draft class, he would be the first pick. And age-wise, he belongs basically in this draft class. So he is one of the biggest reasons for optimism for the Grizzlies going forward. And also, he made the all-rookie team because the team tanked and played him a lot and let him shoot whenever he wanted. All right, so next topic for this episode is the murkiness, the continued murkiness around the Grizzlies coaching staff. I think this all started when Mark Stein said there was going to be a shakeup among the Grizzlies assistant coaches. Then Kelly Iko of The Athletic said lots of Grizzlies coaches were getting let go. Then John Hollinger on his podcast with Nate Duncan said, at the combine, they were all talking about how tons of Grizzlies coaches or the whole coaching staff or, quote, a plurality of Grizzlies assistant coaches had been fired. Now, the team has not officially announced that they fired anyone, not that they normally do. Lots of you have correctly pointed out that assistant coaches, their contracts expire frequently. They're often just 2-year contracts. And yeah, that's true. But I think now, under the where there's smoke, there's fire rule, we can assume most of the Grizzlies coaches from previous seasons are gone. They're going to move on. And Drew Hill's been reporting on this. Taylor Jenkins even said it in a public appearance that, yes, they are in fact restructuring their coaching staff and there are going to be some changes. The only change we know for sure is still that they hired Noah LaRoche. So we know he's going to be on the bench next year for the Grizzlies. Beyond that, I think now we can assume a lot of these familiar faces are going to be gone, like Brad Jones and Vitaly Potapenko and Sonia Rahman and Scooney Penn and Blake Ahern and Anthony Carter. A lot of those guys, I think, not going to be there. I would say most of them not going to be there. I mean, Blake Ahern has a connection to Ja. Maybe he'll be back. We keep assuming Patrick St. Andrews, since he was just hired last year and he has a personal history with Taylor Jenkins, we assume maybe he's going to stick around. But it sounds like we're getting close to finding out the specifics. Eventually, we'll find out the specifics. But as of right now, if you're a betting person, I'd say most of those previous year's assistant coaches will not be back with the Grizzlies. Other NBA news. The all defensive teams were announced. No Grizzlies sniffed making these teams. Jaren played the perfunctory 65 games before getting shut down. I mean, technically he played 66, but Jaren only received one second team all NBA vote. He was outvoted by Dylan Brooks, who received 2 second place all NBA votes, all defensive team votes. The all defense team, largely a team success award. So that's why Jaren, not going to get considered for it. Unless you're Victor Wembanyama setting all kinds of wild block and steal records or, setting block and steal levels we haven't seen since Hakeem Olajuwon, you're probably not going to make an all defensive team if your squad is super sorry. So maybe Jaren can bounce back next year. Next in the news, or next for this episode, let's go over a couple of the latest mock drafts. So we're still in countdown mode for the draft. It's about a month away. Of course, the Grizzlies have the 9th pick. Of course, the Grizzlies have a giant gaping hole at center that they have pledged to fill this offseason. I think when you look at the big men in the draft, the most interesting maybe development after the combine is how it feels like that a lot of the bigs are actually rising to the top of this draft. Already Alex Sarr assumed to go first. Rieseker, not really a center, but apparently there's been some reports that he's going to go top 2. So if the Hawks don't take Sarr, apparently they're going to take Rieseker. And then, the Wizards would take whichever one they don't take. And then Klingon, based on the combine and having the combine coming on the heels of the impressive NCAA tournament run, Klingon seems to be really high up in most mock drafts now. So he won't possibly be there for the Grizzlies at 9. I feel like among Grizzlies fans, there's this groundswell of just Zach Edey. Let's just get Zach Edey. Who cares? Get Zach Edey at 9. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I still haven't seen Zach Edey mocked to the Grizzlies among any of the major sites. Like Jonathan Givony, his latest mock draft has the Grizzlies taking Dalton Knecht, which I'm, again, totally fine with. He is of course, scorer, and that's something the Grizzlies always need more of, which is offense. That's a big reason, I think, why Taylor Jenkins is considering restructuring his coaching staff, because the offense has been so bad. Oh, by the way, I should probably come back to this, maybe just mention it, because of the news about the assistant coaches being changed, and the genesis of a lot of it was from John Hollinger saying on his podcast that, again, a plurality of the coaches have been fired, and that might mean that the seat is getting warm under Taylor Jenkins. I can't remember his exact phrase, but because of that, now all the aggregators have run with Taylor Jenkins is on the hot seat for this upcoming season. And you should know, again, the genesis of all that is John Hollinger just speaking off the cuff on his podcast. There are no sourced reports that Taylor Jenkins is on the hot seat. Now, should Taylor Jenkins be on the hot seat? I think that is a fair debate. I mean, I gave my opinion on the episode I did a few weeks ago, where I gave basically a pass-fail grade to all the Grizzlies players and Taylor Jenkins. Spoiler, on that one, I gave Taylor Jenkins an incomplete. I think it's incomplete. I don't think there's any question Taylor Jenkins is a good regular season coach. He is an above-average NBA coach. Extremely competent. I think the question marks for Taylor Jenkins go to the playoff performance. And also, that's a question mark not just for Taylor Jenkins, that's still a question mark for the Grizzlies players. I think when you look at the Grizzlies having one playoff win, and of course injuries were a big story of that last year, and when Taylor Jenkins took over, the Grizzlies were not expected to be good. But still, 5 seasons, one playoff series win. In that one playoff series win, which of course was against the 7-seed Minnesota Timberwolves a couple seasons ago, in that one series win, the Grizzlies were down by double digits going into the fourth quarter in 3 of the 4 wins. Is it good coaching that they came back? I guess. It's not good coaching that you were losing by double digits going into the fourth quarter of 3 of your 4 wins, especially when you were the 2 seed. I also point out a lot that the Grizzlies are 0-3 in home game ones in the playoffs under Taylor Jenkins. By the way, Sean Coleman dug up this stat that the Grizzlies all time are winless as the higher seed in game ones in the playoffs. I at first thought that like the Grizzlies beat the Trailblazers back in 2015 as the higher seed. They were technically the lower seed. They were the 5th seed. The Blazers were the 4th seed, even though the Grizzlies had home court advantage. The Grizzlies were favored, of course, to win that series. They had a much better record than the Trailblazers. But back in the day, if you won your division, you got to be the 4th seed, even if it didn't give you home court advantage. But kind of a fun stat, or not fun stat, the Grizzlies have never won a game 1 as the higher seed. So for me, when I assess Taylor Jenkins, and I don't know what you can take from last year, other than they were 6-19 in the first 25 games when we thought they would actually be competitive without Ja Morant, but they were not competitive. I look at the coaching performance in the playoffs, and I have concerns about how the team performed as a higher seed in multiple series and getting blown out several times in the first road game of those playoff series, the stuff I've mentioned before. So I don't think Taylor Jenkins is on the hot seat, but maybe it's semantics. If the Grizzlies get off to a slow start this coming year, you better believe that's going to be a hot seat. So this is kind of a make or break year for Taylor Jenkins. Whether or not that qualifies as a hot seat, I guess that's up to you. Anyways, back to the mock drafts I was talking about. Jonathan Givony had the Grizzlies taking Dalton Knecht. Bleacher Report has the Grizzlies taking Rob Dillingham. I think a lot of that, you might say, I don't want a small guard on this team. Like Rob Dillingham especially measured to be super tiny at the combine. I think it was like 160 pounds, 6'1", and he is just a score-first guy. Maybe it's not the ideal roster fit, but of course the Grizzlies are going to draft best player available. And because I think of Klingon not being available in all these mocks and other bigs, maybe you think it's too early to take Edie or whoever, Eves Missy or Filipowski or something. Because of that, you see the Grizzlies now ending up with some of these guards or wings. Now, also that might point to, well, the Grizzlies then, let's just make a trade. And I feel like it's fun as Grizzlies fans to come up with fake trades. And there are certainly plenty of good trade options out there. One I did not mention on the last episode was Jalen Duren. The reason I didn't mention him on the last episode is because I didn't assume he'd be available. But maybe the Pistons are being incredibly impatient as an organization. I've seen multiple beat writers for the Pistons talking about trading like Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. And, you know, maybe if they take Klingon, if the Pistons take Klingon at 5, oh, that is interesting. Maybe Jalen Duren would be available. If Jalen Duren is available, absolutely, I could see the Grizzlies making an aggressive offer to get him. I also assume many other teams would be making an aggressive offer to get Jalen Duren. He's still incredibly young. He is an apex rebounding machine, in my opinion. He would fit, I think, amazingly well on the Grizzlies. Of course, there's the college connection to Memphis. I think if, let's say the Pistons took Klingon at 5. I mean, maybe you could aggressively trade with the Pistons to trade up and get Klingon. The Pistons, if they are being impatient as a front office, they would want win-now players. I don't know who that would be. Like, I don't think the Pistons maybe necessarily want the 9th pick and a future pick for Jalen Duren. They want a player who can win now. I think the most win-now player available for trades from the Grizzlies would be Marcus Smart. I think trading Marcus Smart to an Eastern Conference team might get you the most return because you would assume they've seen this guy over the years. They probably have lost a lot of games to Marcus Smart. Maybe they value him as highly as anybody. Would you trade Marcus Smart and the 9th pick for Jalen Duren? I certainly would. It's an interesting trade because the Pistons could take back Marcus Smart, to my understanding, without having to match salary. So it would accomplish a few things if the Grizzlies made this theoretical trade. It would get them very far away from the dreaded first apron. It would relieve a lot of the salary cap luxury tax concerns for this year because you could send out Marcus Smart's $20 million contract, bring back in Jalen Duren's under $5 million a year contract. Thus, you'd create a trade exception, which then you could, of course, not use, but you would create a trade exception. You'd get far away from the first apron. And of course, you'd bring in this unbelievably promising young athletic center to be a rebounding machine for you, to be a lob finisher. So yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. If you could hang on to Marcus Smart, which is basically what I'm trying to do now when I come up with fake trades, like Marcus Smart, positionally, I keep talking about slightly superfluous. If we have Ja and Desmond and Vince and Gigi, let's be honest, we could trade him maybe for a position of more need, like a big or another power forward who could play alongside Jaren. But when I get to daydreaming about the Grizzlies being the best team they can be, in trades, I would like to keep Marcus Smart because he's pretty good basketball player. So this is an interesting one where because of his low rookie scale contract, could you send out whoever? Could you send out Santi Aldama and the 9th pick and something else to bring in Jalen Duren? Well, I'm interested in that. Could you send out Zaire Williams and the 9th pick and something else to bring in Jalen Duren? Then you get kind of the harder questions. Would you send out Vince Williams Jr. and the 9th pick? I would not want to do that because I adore Vince Williams Jr. But if Jalen Duren was on the table, which we don't know if he is in fact, but it's been speculated about from the Pistons side of things, so I think that is something that's worth considering for the Grizzlies. And then there's the other more obvious trade candidates that I've talked about in previous episodes. But one thing I'd like to add to this conversation, or one further bit of context from the league that I think that can inform our trade speculations, is the news that the NBA is very close to signing this new television deal. NBC, Amazon, and ESPN/Disney are apparently very close to finalizing the new or the next TV deal. And if the numbers are accurate, and I assume the numbers reported are accurate, the salary cap is going to go up the maximum amount it can go up for the next 5 seasons. It's going to go up 10% a year. What this means for a team like the Grizzlies that already has some bigger salaries. They already have John Morant under contract. They already have Desmond Bane under contract. They already have Jaren Jackson Jr. under contract for the next 2 years. What this means is you're probably not going to have to be that concerned. I mean, eventually you will be concerned because you want to keep Jaren Jackson Jr. a couple seasons from now. But the salary cap going up means the luxury tax line is going up, which means the first apron is going up. So even though no matter what the Grizzlies do, I mean, unless they do my Marcus Smart for Jalen Duren trade, they're probably going to be right up against the first apron. They might, or they should be a luxury tax team, although they still might dodge that. But next year, the apron is going to go up from $178 million, which is what it is in the 2024-2025 season. It's going to go up to $196 million. And then the next year, it's going to be $216 million. And then the next year, it's going to be $238 million. If the numbers on SpotTrack are accurate, their guesses are, again, the salary cap and the luxury tax lines, they're going to rise by 10% a year. And the way that compounds, that means that the first apron is going to be at $238 million, just 4 seasons from now. That also means, by the way, that when Jaren is eligible for his next contract, a 30% max contract starting in 2026, that could be a 5-year, $300 million contract. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's next contract, if he signs at the Supermax, that could have him making $81 million in the 5th year of that deal. That's according to Bobby Marks in his projections. So what that means specifically short-term for the Grizzlies is I think you should be cool adding money this year, even if it takes you right to the second apron or even over the second apron. If you can get a Jared Allen who's signed for 2 years, if you can get a Cam Johnson who's signed for 3 more years, yeah, you're going to pay luxury tax this year, but you should probably be able to dodge the luxury tax next year. At the very least, 2 years from now, again, you can work around it because that cap is rising. Like Desmond Bane's deal, it's a lot, but it's not going to be that bad. John Morant's deal is going to be a bargain when the salary cap keeps rising. We know that the G.G. Jackson deals and the Vince Williams Jr. deals probably going to be bargains. So because of that, I would not be too scared of trying to bring in a guy who makes $15 million or $20 million or even $25 million this year if it helps your team. Some of those names, these are guys I mentioned before, but now I have become maybe more emboldened to theorize about trading for them because when I see, the first apron is going to be $238 million in 2 years. Yeah, we can stand to that. That's what I think about. Yeah, Jared Allen, of course. Trade for Jared Allen. If you could trade for Jared Allen and keep Marcus Smart, yes, let's do it. I don't know if that's feasible. Again, you'd have to pick up Luke Kennard's team option. Luke Kennard plus Santi Aldama plus something else, plus the 9th pick. Can that do it? That works for me. Brook Lopez. I don't think the Bucks would trade Brook Lopez because they're trying to win. They're trying to win a title around Giannis. But Brook Lopez makes $23 million next year. It's an expiring contract. Could you give them something that would, shake Brook Lopez free? I mean, that's a team where I think they might have interest in a Marcus Smart. But, Marcus Smart and the 9th pick and what else? What are the Bucks going to do for a center? I don't know. But Brook Lopez, sure, bring him in. We'll worry about his next deal a year from now. This is, again, a Mikal Bridges trade. I don't think a Mikal Bridges trade is likely just because the Grizzlies are going to be outbid. The Rockets can outbid the Grizzlies. The Pelicans, if they wanted to. I don't think they want to, maybe, because they already have Trey Murphy. They have Herb Jones. But, there are lots of other teams that could outbid the Grizzlies for Mikal Bridges. But I always come back to Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson, a sub all-star player, some people think his contract is bad. I think 3 years, $69 million over the next 3, what I consider the rising cap, that's no big deal. Like, he makes 23 this year. The following year, it goes down to 21. Then it goes back up to 23. I don't mind paying Cam Johnson 10% of the cap 2 years from now. Cam Johnson is a tall Luke Kennard. He's a Luke Kennard who shoots more, who rebounds better because he's almost 6'10". He gets to the line more. Like, anyone who wants to keep Luke Kennard, get Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson does not overlap positionally with Desmond Bane and Ja Morant and Marcus Smart. You can play them all at the same time. I would be thrilled about a trade for Cam Johnson. I think when you consider, all right, what our team needs, and then you look at the draft and you say, well, Klingon's off the board at 9. If you could get a starter for the 9th pick, like, you're hoping you get a starter with the 9th pick. Like, that's the dream. I don't know what the percentages are that a 9th pick turns into a starter for a playoff team. It's less than 50%. And I know the dreams of winning a title are usually tied to hitting a home run with your draft picks. Like, so maybe a path to a title is more assured if you get lucky with a 9th pick as opposed to trading the 9th pick for the NBA's 110th best player or something. But when we already have Ja, Jaren, and Dez, and we already have Gigi coming up in the pipeline, just getting a guy who can play power forward and small forward, who hits 40% of his threes, who's signed for the next 3 years, I value that a lot. And I would absolutely consider trading. If you could match the salary, again, if it was Luke Kennard and Zaire Williams and the 9th pick for Cam Johnson, I'd be pretty thrilled, honestly. Other names of guys you might be able to get for cheap or free. Again, looking at the rising cap, I'm less hesitant about taking on the bad salary of an Andrew Wiggins. What if Andrew Wiggins has a bounce back year? Even Andrew Wiggins last season, which was bad and underwhelming by Warriors fans' standards, that'd be a really good player for the Grizzlies to have. Bad Andrew Wiggins, let's be honest, would be a really good player to pair alongside Jaren Jackson Jr. Wiggins can defend, and he's a pretty solid rebounder. If the offense comes back around, you got to steal. The contract is the concern. But repeating myself, with the cap going up by 10%, maybe each of the next 5 seasons at minimum, not as daunting to take on those bad contracts. That's another one where you don't have to, the acquisition cost. I talk a lot about acquisition cost. Someone mentioned Nick Claxton in the YouTube comments for the last episode. I've talked about it before. Nick Claxton, would I rather have Nick Claxton over nothing? Sure. But to get Nick Claxton, you probably have to send picks or assets to the Nets to facilitate a sign and trade. You're also going to have to put in matching salary. I don't think Nick Claxton is an ideal fit with Jaren when you consider the defense and rebounding. But if I get a player who doesn't cost me anything, if I don't have to send out a first round pick to get Andrew Wiggins, well, then now I'm interested. Other players where, they make a lot of money and maybe you consider it. I think this is my cutoff line where I think these guys actually make too much money and the luxury tax squeeze might not be worth it, are guys like Jeremy Grant and John Collins. I mean, John Collins flat out overpaid, but I think wouldn't cost much to get him. And he's a good fit alongside Jaren Jackson Jr. Jeremy Grant makes close to $30 million, and I don't know how well he's going to age. And the problem with that is you still need to get a center in. At least John Collins, you could say, all right, we could manage in the front court if it's Jaren and John Collins plus Santi Aldama plus Brandon Clark. But with Jeremy Grant, you still have a gaping hole at center. Similar thing for Kyle Kuzma. I don't have that much interest in Kyle Kuzma, although Kyle Kuzma on social media did come to the defense of Taylor Jenkins, saying, how was Taylor Jenkins on the hot seat? But I don't. Same thing with Jeremy Grant. You still have to get a center, and I think the squeeze for the luxury tax might be a little bit too much. But those are just my newest thoughts on trades. Now that we know exactly, or we have a good idea what the luxury tax lines are going to be going forward, and I think I covered all the names most of you guys are throwing out there. Anyways, I think that's good for today. Congratulations, G.G. Jackson, second team all rookie, and we will continue to monitor the assistant coach watch for the Grizzlies. Oh, by the way, breaking news, J.B. Bickerstaff, former Grizzlies coach, has been fired by the Cleveland Cavaliers. So the Cavaliers are shaking things up. Let's go get Jared Allen. All right. Anyways, thanks everybody for listening. If you want to support the show, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Come join the Slack channel. Anyways, hope you guys have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.